Thank you, Sir Desi, for that presentation. I believe that is one of the most comprehensive lectures I've heard about CVIF DLP learning activity sheets. Napakaikli ng panahon natin pero ang dami niyo pong naituro sa amin, and I hope our audience were able to take down notes about the CVIF DLP LAS, which will surely be helpful for them as they prepare for the coming school year. Sir Desi, ang ganda nung binigay ninyo na format kanina, no, yung LAS, that we need to look and see the layout of our activity sheets, and then yung age appropriateness and yung kanyang accuracy, and also yung pagiging self-contained niya, na tipong ang LAS, pag binigay mo sa bata, dapat ay naiintindihan niya on his or her own. Kaya naman, Sir Desi, meron ako mga ilang tanong dito. I hope na mapaunlakan ninyong sagutin at i-discuss natin ngayon. Okay, ang unang tanong po, para sa mga teachers na magsusulat ng activity sheet, gaano kahalaga na dapat kilala nila yung mga bata o di kaya nakapantay ito sa ability ng mga estudyante?
So, tama ka dun, Sir Dave. It's very important that the teachers know to whom they are writing the learning activity sheets, which means that if an LAS is very difficult, then a lot of our students will not be able to answer it. Now, if it is too easy, then it may not provide the challenge that we want to give to our students. That's why one of the things that we tell our teachers when we write learning activity sheets is to progress our degree of difficulty from easy, moderate to difficult. By doing that, Sir Dave, then we're assured that students will be able to answer it confidently without the aid of a teacher.
Okay. Sige, Sir Desi, when you look at the learning activity sheet, meron siyang part doon na nakalagay learning targets. How does this compare to the MELC? Paano ba 'yon? Pareho lang ba 'yon or dapat bang sabay isulat 'yon or guide lang ba yung isa? Paano po 'yon?
Because ang MELC, the competencies are very broad. So these competencies can be broken down into many objectives or targets. So when I look at an MLC, I look at it in such a way that I am thinking, how can I translate this into different learning activity sheets with different targets? By also thinking the abilities of our students. So syempre, kung alam na ng mga bata ang lesson na to, then pwede nating baguhin yung target. Pero kung alam kong kailangan kong i-discuss ito in detail because mahihirapan ang mga bata, then I can provide other targets. So that can be a good signal already, Sir Dave, na from the MELC, you have different targets that you can have for your learning activity sheet.
Ito ho yung madalas na tanong ng mga teachers natin. Talaga bang isang page lang ang pwedeng gamitin sa LAS? One page lang?
Yes, sir. Because pag gumagawa tayo ng learning activity sheet, hindi natin ipipilit na lahat ng topics or lahat ng concepts sa lesson na ito ilalagay natin. So what we do is we try to only put one major concept per activity. So if your lesson is about fractions, it doesn't mean that you only have one learning activity sheet about fractions. So you can have several activity sheets all pertaining to fractions so that you'll be able to reach the required competency. For high school, grade 7 to 12, or even for grade 5 and grade 6, we can use 14-point, 1.5 spacing. But for the younger pupils, then we can use 18 or even sometimes 20 and then 1.5 spacing.
So gaano ho ba kahalaga na malalaki ang letra or may spacing yon? May epekto ba yon sa pagtingin ng mga bata dun sa activity sheet?
For me, meron because kung magpapadala tayo ng printout sa mga bata, yun na makikita nila. And that can also be a guide kung paano nila isusulat ito sa kanilang blank LAS. So, ganun din kung magpapadala ka ng soft copy, kung maayos yung pagkaka-format natin ng learning activity sheet, mas maintindihan ng bata kung paano niya dapat ito ikopya sa kanyang LAS.
Okay. Kung ako ho ang teacher, sabi ko, teka, parang mas magandang i-discuss to kapag merong drawing. Ano ho bang guidelines natin dun sa drawing? Ano ba siya? Pwede bang colored or gaano ba ka-complex ang drawing or gaano ka-simple?
Actually, Sir Dave, ang the use of drawings or illustrations is very encouraged in creating learning activity sheets.
Okay.
For subjects, let's say for science, wherein you need to provide illustrations to explain a certain lesson. Let's say meron kang lesson about solid, liquid, and gas, the different states of matter. Pwede ka mag-provide ng very simple drawings on how the molecules move or behave sa isang solid object, sa liquid, or sa gas para mas ma-visualize ng bata. And ito, isa sa mga natutunan ko kanila, Dr. Bernido, wherein when a student draws something, it actually slows them down, allowing them to understand the lesson better. So dito talaga mas gusto natin na nakapag-focus ang bata, and one way to focus is by illustrating. Even the use of tables to organize information, we also do that para mas maintindihan ng bata. So drawing is allowed and very much encouraged in creating LAS.
Halimbawa, no, dun sa merong malakas na internet. Ano ba yun? Pwede ba silang maglagay ng mga video links, kunwari, to further explain a concept?
Walang problema. That can be the teacher intervention already. So for cases wherein merong connectivity ang bata or may access siya sa device at saka sa internet, what we can have is also provide them with video discussions that can explain the lesson after they write the learning activity sheet.
Integration of competencies across learning strands. Ano ba yun? Sige ho.
Okay. Kasi minsan, ang challenge nating mga teachers is napakaraming competencies ang kailangan nating i-cover with a very limited time we have. And one way to address this is by integrating. Actually, what is more important to emphasize here also is sometimes there are other competencies not in our level na kailangan pa nating i-discuss kasi hindi ito na-achieve ng bata sa previous school year. At syempre para mas maintindihan natin nila ang lesson, kailangan natin i-discuss muna to. So when you do integration, there are actually a lot of lessons from different subjects na pwede ninyong isahin. So for example, sa English grade 7 at sa Math grade 7, both levels actually talk about how to interpret graphs. So ibig sabihin, pwede na siyang ituro sa isang subject lang para mas makasave tayo ng time at para hindi pa ulit-ulit yung lesson. So by doing that in one subject, that means they are learning something that they're supposed to learn in another subject also, Sir Dave. So that can be an example of integration. Ang isang magandang example din ng integration is pag nagtuturo ka ng math, syempre babalikan mo yung basic na lesson. So para may built-in review ka. So by doing that, naka-coordinate mo yun, nagagamit mo yung previous knowledge nila, mas naaalala nila, so mas nasi-strengthen yung kanilang knowledge kasi nauulit natin yung lesson sa kanila. May mga ibang paaralan wherein let's say a division can have many Filipino teachers in one level. So instead na ikaw yung gumawa ng lahat ng LAS, pwede niyong paghati-hatian yan after meeting, after deciding kung anong klaseng LAS yung gagawin ninyo. So importante na from the MELCs, makapag-decide kayo at maka-agree kayo kung anong LAS ang gagawin nyo. At let's say meron kayong gagawing 20 learning activity sheets for one quarter, at meron kayong 5 Filipino teachers sa level na yon, that means you can make 4 each. So mas magaan ang trabaho sa paggawa ng learning activity sheet at makaka-focus din si teacher na pagandahin ang paggawa ng learning activity sheet.
Ito po, LAS for non-readers yet, like kinder or grade 1. Paano ho ba yung tinuturo? Pwede rin bang magturo ng reading sa mga bata using the LAS, or a different intervention may be used po?
I'm not very familiar with yung sa mga preschool or sa kinder, but I think it's still doable. Again, as the teacher handling that subject, I think the teacher can already identify what are the things na kailangan gawin, the necessary interventions para matuto ang isang bata. So it can be in the form of a learning activity sheet or other activities or other strategies.
So pag open ho ng classes, ano yun? Formative assessment na ang gagawin through the LAS or
Yes, sir.
paano ho bang strategy doon?
So at the beginning, mapapansin mo yan sa first few learning activity sheets, lalo na hindi natin kilala ang mga students, mapapansin mo na meron silang mga common, let's say, mistakes or parang sa part na ito, hindi pa sila masyado marunong. So that can also be parang a signal na baka kailangan kong ituro ito ulit para mas maintindihan nila ang lesson.
Okay.
Ang isang example niyan, sir, sa English, pagdating ng junior high, may mga batang hindi pa masyado familiar sa capitalization rules, sa grammar. So bago tayo mag-move sa mas mahihirap at complicated na English lessons, maganda na i-review muna natin to. So that's why aside from, of course, our goal is to reach the required competency, maganda din na mapunan natin kung ano yung mga pagkukulang para hindi na maging hindi na ito maging para ma-master na ng bata pagdating niya sa next level.
Sir, ngayon po gumawa na ng modules or mayroon nang na-provide ang Department of Education dun sa kanilang mga teachers, no? Paano 'yon? Paano mag-ibabalanse ng isang eskwelahan kung gusto niyang gumamit ng learning activity sheet ang kumpara sa mga modules?
Kung ako yung tatanungin mo, sir, the modules can still be used. It's still a good resource material. Maybe what I can do as a teacher, for example, is look on how I can chunk the lessons in the module so that I can use that as a learning activity sheet. That is something that I've learned because when you see in other textbooks or other resources, they tend to cram a lot of things in one page, for example. And we know from experience that the students will have a hard time understanding that lesson. So you can use that material again to chunk or to subtask your activities. So magagamit pa rin siya.
Ikaro lang po natin na ang learning activity sheet ng CVIF DLP ay hindi libro. Tama ho ba?
Hindi po, sir. It's not even a manual or a worksheet. So we give it to our students one activity at a time.
Okay. Sige ho. At hindi nila basta lang ito sasagutan. Kokopyahin nila.
Yes, sir.
LAS for both formative and summative assessments, pwede po siyang gamitin. Tama ho ba?
Yes, sir. Ang learning activity sheet is a general term for different activities. And it can be a quiz, which is a summative assessment, or a drill, which can be considered a formative assessment. Ang kagandahan lang dito sa learning activity sheets din, a lot of our daily learning activity sheets are formative in nature, which is yun din ang isinusulong ng DepEd na kailangan ng bata ng napakaraming formative assessments bago tayo magbigay ng isang summative assessment.
Ito ho, may tanong dito, 1 LAS for 1 week or 4 LAS for 1 week? Ano kayang ibig sabihin ng gano'n?
Wala tayong standard answer dyan, sir. Kasi ang pwede natin, if we go back, let's say, magbibigay tayo ng class program sa bata at we will allot 1 hour per day for every subject, then we can give 1 LAS per day or even 2 depending on the kind of LAS you give. So wala talaga siyang fixed na dapat 1 per day or 4 per week, but sometimes it would depend on the pacing of our students. Lalo na ngayon na binibigay natin sa kanila ito weekly, so actually pwede nilang gawin ito sa makakaya nila.
So sa isang bata, ilan naman ang dapat mong ibigay sa kanya? Sabi niyo kanina kung siya ay considered a brilliant student, mas marami ba siyang LAS or CVIF DLP learning activity sheets na matatanggap? Paano po ba 'yun?
I think with our setup now, because we have different kinds of students, siguro magkakaiba lang sila sa oras ng pagtapos ng activity. So baka mas mauuna lang yung mas magaling na bata at kailangan pa ng more time ng mga students, ng ibang mga students. So ngayon kung natapos na yung bata sa kanyang activities for the week, then that can be his reward to do other things. Pwede siyang maglaro, pwede siyang kung meron siyang access sa internet or sa device, pwede siyang mag-research about sa topic na 'yon. So I think what's important here is yung binibigay natin ay hindi masyadong mahirap at hindi rin sobrang dali na activities.
Pero kung ang bata ho ay gustong mag-review pa o gusto niya mag-aral pa, okay lang din naman.
Yes po, walang hindi ito pinagbabawal.
Okay, basta walang pilitan dun sa panahon
Yes po.
niya. Okay, sige ho. How does an LAS or using an LAS support English or yung language na ginagamit, Filipino or English?
Okay. For subjects like math, science, we use English as the medium of instruction. So actually, ang napapansin namin, at ito kahit sila Dr. Bernido, nakita nila to sa mga students nila, ay parang mas nagiging mas mahusay sa pagsulat ang mga bata kasi araw-araw silang na-expose sa the use of formal functional English language.
Okay.
At kung sa Filipino naman ay sa araling panlipunan at syempre sa Filipino subject. So ito yung sinasabi din natin na the learning of English is not only during English time because they learn how to write proper sentences in a math LAS, how to capitalize, how to write with correct grammar in a science learning activity sheet. Okay. So ito yung integrated at saka built-in review na nakikita ng bata na kung mapapansin natin sa mga students na exposed sa dynamic learning program, pag sumasagot sila, they are able to express more because they are used to the formal English language.
Okay. So ito ho, experiments and physical activities. Paano ho ba ito gagawin with the LAS, with the CVIF DLP Learning Activity Sheet?
Pwede tayong magkaroon ng laboratory report, pero ito ang isa sa mga natutunan ko over the years of being exposed sa dynamic learning program. Hindi necessary na napakarami ang ating laboratory activities. Dahil, again, napakaraming bagay ang pwedeng matutunan ng bata using other means.
Okay.
That's why this can solve the problem or the challenge of the lack of laboratory equipment, especially in other schools. So, sa CVIF, for example, they have learning stations when they are needed only.
Okay.
Kasi iniiwasan natin yung yung parang recipe type na laboratory activity. At syempre, kung nasa bahay ito gagawin, we're not sure that all our students will have access to these materials.
Precisely.
Yes, sir. And if I may add lang din, sir, kasi yung pag sa DLP, aside from the competencies, tulad ng sabi nyo, is we also develop yung habit-forming protocols.
Yeah.
So, pag sanay ang bata na ginagawa ito, madadala nila ito pag nasa college na sila or even graduate school, na which I think is more important, na alam nila kung paano matuto independently. If things will become more challenging or difficult. Kasi reality is you cannot discuss everything to a junior high school student. They'll have to leave junior high school and there are things that they'll have to discover on their own. Pero kung independent learners sila, hindi sila ganun mahihirapan dahil na-expose sila nito at an early age.
Back to teachers. Ano ho ang roles nila ngayon? Sila ba ay naging directors of knowledge because they have the LAS, they don't, do lectures?
The roles of teachers are actually shifted already. So, ang goal of teachers is dati, siya lang ang nagbibigay ng information. Ngayon is using the learning activity sheets na binibigay niya, a teacher is able now to diagnose kung ano pa ang saang parts ng lesson na hihirapan ang mga students nila. So, let's say nabalik na sa kanya ang learning activity sheets and the teacher will start checking. That can be a good evidence already. Kasi lahat ng bata may output eh. So, that can be a good way to assess kung ano pa ba ang dapat nating i-discuss or kung ano pang learning activity sheet ang ibibigay natin sa bata para mas matutunan nila ang topic na ito. So, malaki pa rin ang role ng mga teachers sa DLP.
Sir, ito naman, para sa mga non-readers, paano ba yun? Kasi syempre walang adult supervision. Halimbawang hindi naman makapagturo or hindi available ang mga magulang. Ang mga teachers, paano din yun? How does the learning activity sheet or the whole CVIF DLP pedagogy allow learning to prosper on its own?
I think it happens because the LES that we create are suited for our learners. So again, babalikan ko yung very important thought sa dynamic learning program na ibibigay natin ang isang activity dahil handa na ang bata. So if it means na kailangan nating mag-backtrack, balikan yung mga previous competencies na hindi pa nila na-master, it's very important na gagawin natin yon. Kasi kung mag-move ito, ang bata sa next level at hindi pa rin siya marunong magbasa, then it won't solve the problem. So I think that's what I like about the LAS and the program in general, because it allows a lot of flexibility. And it's very student-centered na we focus on what students need now so that they can move on. And when I talk to the teachers of CVIF, because they tell me stories that they have students in grade 7 where nahihirapang magbasa or sa mga skills, after giving them the appropriate activities, the students are just able to be at par with the other students in time.
Again, ang LAS ay sinulat para sa buong spectrum. Ibig sabihin, kahit poor learners, average learners, or brilliant learners, ay, di ba, maiintindihan ng LAS. Tama
yes,
ba?
Sir.
Ba yun?
Yes, sir. For example, sa isang school, kung merong isang grade 7 student na may kakulangan siya, let's say, sa isang lesson, pwede nating hiramin actually ang LAS ng grade 5 or grade 6 para yun ang magamit ng bata. Para lang ma-address yung kanyang yung competency na hindi pa niya na-master.
Ang mga teachers, paano ba sila mag-check? Will it be daily, weekly, or depende sa schedule nila?
I'll talk with our experience. What happens is our teachers design the learning activity sheets, and then on a weekly basis, they submit this to their coordinators, or in other schools, they call these teachers supervisors, and then sometimes principal. So actually, because of this setup, you don't even have to be in the classroom, because just by looking at the outputs of your teachers, you already have a good indicator how the flow of lesson is being done. If it is very fast, if it is complete, and so on.
Okay, so ito, last question. Students really accomplishing the LAS, paano natin masisigurado yon?
Okay. I think there's no other way than letting them write it. So, sa pagsulat lang, alam ko minsan, magsusulat ang bata, hindi pa niya maintindihan to. Pero, pwede niyang basahin ito ulit at meron na siyang maintindihan. So, compared to, let's say, bigyan lang natin sila ng printed or makikinig lang sila sa video. Nung pwede pa ang face-to-face, some teachers would discuss 1 hour straight. But we're not sure if our students are listening to us. They're physically in the classroom, but they're mentally absent. What more now that they are at home? So if we just send them video materials or send them printed activities, we're not sure if gagalawin ba nila yun or titingnan nila. So sa pagsulat ng LAS, yun ang isang proof na talaga na ginawa ng bata ang isang activity at nag-attempt siya na sagutan yung mga tanong after the concept digest.
Okay, sir, meron po kayong message sa ating mga audience ngayon about the discussion?
Okay. So, nagsimula na kami ng klase. I'm sure the teachers who are listening are preparing for the school opening. I know that it will be difficult. There are a lot of challenges, but I think we are born to be in this time wherein we can challenge ourselves and do different strategies and activities so that our students can learn better. And I hope that you can make use of the system wherein its main focus is allowing students to understand things on their own, which is very relevant now because we cannot be with our students in one place. So I hope that using the dynamic learning program and using the learning activity sheets that you will create, you'll be able to see that our students are really capable of learning independently and moving on to different kinds of lesson through the use of this material.
Maraming salamat Sir Desi no sa iyong pagsagot sa mga tanong na yon, and totoo nga no na hindi lang basta talino ang hinahabol natin dito kundi pati yung pagiging mabait ng ating mga future generation, mga kabataan. So there you have it. Mukhang nasagot naman lahat ng mga tanong, ng mga usual na tanong about the DLP LAS, and we hope that you're able to learn more and appreciate this methodology of teaching that highly promotes independent learning. For updated details about CVIF DLP or CVIF Dynamic Learning Program, continuously follow us and visit CVIF DLP Facebook page, CVIF DLP discussion group, and DLP.ph.